Are you like I was 12 months ago, hard stuck trying to find an A to Z systematic guide to finding good cryptocurrency projects? Look, let's face it, guys. Crypto is full of shilling, whether it's a YouTuber down the road, whether it's crypto Twitter, it doesn't matter. This industry is saturated with people that shill for money and you'll never figure out who it is.
Are you sure about that?
Or if it even is shilling. So the most important thing in this space is you going out and understanding the technology and understanding what makes a project good, bad, or fucking excellent. And that is a really, really crucial step in not just your development, but investments, okay? So I'm gonna be going through my A to Z guide on how I find these projects, what I use in my own time to vet the projects that I research, that I look up, and that I invest in. So in saying that, this is gonna be completely free. I'm gonna be coming out with a live stream once a week that actually shows you how I go through these steps, A to Z. Now, if you are a channel subscriber and you've heard all this before, a month ago I posted a video where I actually went through right from budgeting to when the right time to invest in, and that video isn't what I'm covering today. What I'm covering today is the meat and potatoes in between both of those sort of endpoints, which is gonna be pretty much how to find these projects, which I didn't go in that video. So again, I'll be using this in my live streams once a week so you guys can get this content for free. In saying that, before we head on, I want to let you know this will also be a course. You'll see in a second, there's so much content to cover in this video. A lot of these are dot points and a lot of these aren't as clear as what you'd like them to be, especially if you are brand new to the space. So in saying that, again, I'll be coming out with a course, $5, $10, $15 a month, so you guys can get cheap access to this information on a much more granular level, especially if you aren't accustomed to some of the terms and sort of research methods that I actually use. So with that being said, let's jump into Myro so you know what the hell I'm actually talking about. So this will look very, very familiar to you if you are someone who has watched that video, and I do suggest you do, because as I said, we're taking you right from the top, which is budgeting, right to the bottom when I'm looking to invest in the market when it hits a certain level, okay? So very, very important you do, but as I said, meat and potatoes for this video, A to Z vetting guide. This is all the purple area, okay? Now, I'm planning to work with Myro so you guys can get a copy of this yourselves, go through it, manipulate it, actually use it. Myro, for those of you who don't know, this program is actually, you have to pay for it to download someone else's information, anyone else's sort of spreadsheets in that regard. So I'm trying to partner with them. We're going back and forth with emails, trying to find a few things out. So keep in mind that this is still a little bit in the trial stages. Worst comes to worst, I'll make a free guide for you guys on a different sort of platform. Now, let's run through. Again, we've got dot points here. Each and every single one of these points I plan to go through with you on that paid course, and regardless, go through on the live streams anyway. So let's have a quick look here. Is the project memetic? If you watch my videos, you'll notice, my weekly videos, you'll notice some of these sort of topics do come up in a lot of the videos, and it's what I tend to say I look for first, and this is why. So is the project memetic? So does the project have something that will stick? Example, 500,000 TPS, sharded blockchains, etc., etc. This can simply be something that stands out upon reading the homepage within the first 5 or 10 minutes. We validate these claims later. So is there something that's like, wow, like this project has 500K TPS, Cadena, for example, you know, it can scale exponentially. You know, if industries do jump into the blockchain tech, this project is the project to go to. Whether it's true or not, hey, at this stage, we don't have to know for certain. We go through the white paper first, and then we go through a few feasibility tests, okay? So read the white paper. Pretty self-explanatory. You guys can obviously pause the screen. I'm actually a little bit sick at the moment, so I don't want to over talk too much because I'll start coughing. So, you know, me trying to go through this might be a bit difficult. But regardless, pause the video and go through this yourself. It's just pretty much reading the white paper, trying to find sort of what their ethos is there a USP, you know, terms, concepts. Make sure you understand what it is. The white paper is the place to go. It's directly from the horse's mouth. It's what sort of is the foundations behind the protocol itself. So it is important you go to the white paper very, very first. I know a lot of you guys are going to be pretty pissed off hearing that because it is a bit difficult doing so, but I suggest you do. Next, is it feasible? So is the project proposition feasible with current technology standards? So we're going to use Google, we're going to use articles, definitions, a little bit more research. So you'll notice at the start of these videos, or at the start of my research, I go heavy on the harder stuff first, because I need to know what the hell is the project saying? Why is it so important? Why would anyone want to buy it? Okay, people want to buy something that is a wow factor, that's memetic, and feasible, so we know it's going to work. For example, if down here, if I was saying in the early 2000s that I've got a new sort of phone that's coming out, it's called a smartphone, touch, all that sort of thing, touchscreen, people are going to go, wow, that's crazy. And back then, I'm talking 2001, 2002, 2003, people would sort of understand that is feasible because 2007 Apple came out with their iPhone. So that's what I'm sort of saying. Like, it can be in the realm of like, wow, that's kind of futuristic, but the feasibility test is us researching like what actually is the standard and is this being researched. If it's something like AI that like, tells you the future and like plans all the future trades out based on this and that, like, I mean, come on, that sounds a bit ridiculous. Next, what is their defensibility? Okay, so defensibility is super important, and this is going to be something I'm going to have to spend about half an hour to an hour in that course explaining to a lot of people. There is 4 different types of defensibilities: brand, embedding, scale, and network effects. Network effects being the most powerful, and the kind of idea is to go through each of these and identify as many as possible. So you don't have to have all 4. You can have 2, 1, 3, or all 4. Doesn't really matter. The main thing is that it does have some sort of defensibility. As I said to you before, the strongest being the middle one, network effects. Okay, so we can go through these in later videos. My biggest thing, and what I find a lot of projects have, now this is a prime example of Chainlink, is embedding. So you notice that Chainlink is everywhere, and pretty much Chainlink will never go away. That's why it would be such a good investment, because it is an Oracle service. It is built into a lot of protocols, sourcing a lot of relevant information. And you'll notice that they're also moving towards more like real life things as well. And if you took Chainlink out of the ecosystem, a lot of projects would go to fucking zero. So like, Chainlink is a perfect example of embedding, and that is why it is so powerful to know if the project has a defensibility inside of it. Next, also pretty important as well, team members. Now, we're going to observe the first, or the top 4 team members. So the CEO, co-founders, sort of like leads, not really the developers so much, but more so the top 4, maybe even top 5 team members there. Are they fully doxed? Do they have links to their LinkedIn, Face? Have they been suspected of any criminal offenses, scams? Have they been involved in other unicorns or successful projects? What is their background, basically? It's very important. Now, who are the investors? Again, super important here. We can use a few websites for this. We can use Cypher Hunter, which is free, or we can use the much more expensive Crunchbase. Now, Crunchbase from memory is like $400 or $500 a year subscription. It's what I actually use myself. If you're someone who really wants to make the most out of this space, you would purchase that, but obviously you don't really have to. So, I'm actually coming out with my own website. I'm developing my own website that will actually help with this sort of stuff. It's a website designed, a free website designed for users to actually go on to projects themselves and have a look at all their details, who they're invested in, who their investors are, potential team members, all that sort of thing. So it'll be free. And but yeah, again, that's all that's all coming out. So we won't talk too much about that. Now, who are the partners and advisors? Again, just as important as the team. If you have pretty sketchy advisors or partners, possibly previously involved in scams and things like that, it does warrant a little bit of hesitation towards myself in terms of investment, of course, because you don't want to invest in anything that relates to anyone having previous involvement in scams, rug pulls, things like that, especially if they're an advisor saying, hey guys, you should look at doing this. So again, that's something we need to look at as well. Now we move down the run. So what are the tokenomics? So this is, again, something that's going to scare a lot of people, but we're going to break this down. So this is more so of like getting into tokenomics. So, is it a fair pre-mine launch? What are the quantity of tokens, token utility, inflation or deflation model, and burn mechanisms as well. So we need to sort of find these points. Again, this is going to be that little dot point right there. There's a fair amount of information in just that section. But once you do begin to get more comfortable in the space, that'll be, a really, really quick process for you. Now, this also comes along in a way with the tokenomics, which is what is the token distribution? So how much of the token supply is going to third-party, what I call third-party investors, okay? So that's just venture capitalists or investors, advisors, and the team. People who have the tokens that can manipulate them whenever they want. Sell them off just like that, and then all of a sudden, the prices drop 20%. That is technically a scary thing, but we're going to use that in a way to make us money. We're going to buy these dips and we're going to sort of use that with what we call the vesting schedule to sort of find these possible points of volatility where we can take full advantage. We look for things like cliffs, sharp unlock periods, time in relation to the next halving, the quality of the investors as well. If they're not as quality as some of the, the top tier investors, Alameda, Pantera, things like that, then of course they're going to look for quick, easy profits rather than holding for the long term because they have to make a quicker investment or return for their investors, okay? So we're going to locate important dates and things like that as well. Most important thing as well is marking these dates into your calendar. I mean, this is something that sounds super silly and a lot of you are going to read that and go, fuck, this guy's talking a lot of shit. Like that really doesn't sound like something that is that important. But I'm telling you, if this is what you want to do, if you want to spend the next 2 years of your life busting your ass, doing this, following this, come the next bull run, guys, you're going to be invested in those projects that you won't have to ever work a day in your life ever again. So adding something to your calendar, to your calendar down the bottom here, this little thing, right? Adding things to that is so important because you get a notification on your computer saying, hey, unlock period for such and such project has arrived. Like, this may be a good buying opportunity. So these little things that are the difference between people 100xing their investment and 50xing. It's a matter of that small percentage and drop, okay? Because that does equal when you start moving up the percentages. Now, do they have an emission schedule? More or less the same as a vesting schedule. Sometimes it is sort of combined with the vesting schedule itself. But a perfect example is Kadena. If you want to go on Kadena right now and look up, on Google, Kadena emissions, you'll find that the emissions actually is the vesting schedule as well. So projects call it different things. A lot of projects actually separate the two, and the emissions more or less is the token emissions itself. Like, what they mean is the token. So through mining, through proof of stake, like there's inflation rates and things like that are healthy, that are important in a lot of POS projects as well, keeping that Byzantine level in check. It is very, very important to differentiate the two and to search for the two if there is. Again, a lot of the time they're going to be combined, so a lot of the time it will be just under vesting, a lot of the time it will be just under emissions, but you will find the occasional project that has the two, and we need to understand what the difference between the two is. One, so vesting, you can sort of say, is like investors, team, advisors, even the community rounds, and then the emissions is more like what the protocol generates through mining or through just token emissions. Now, how are they making money? What is their economic state? Now, this is going to be pretty important because we need to know what feature do the protocol actually use that makes them money. If they're a DEX, it's going to be through the rewards. Not the rewards, the fees in the actual shopping feature, the AMM itself, for example. Like what feature is built into the protocol that is making them a return? Now, this will be pretty easy to find. It may be difficult at first, but as I said to you before, going through and finding out in the documents, the white paper should obviously have the information. Then it'll be very, very easy to understand. If there's no way where you can find there's fees coming out, or there's any sort of information where you can tell the protocol is making money this way, then the chances are it's a PND, pump and dump. They're making money from you. I know it's hard to believe a lot of the time. A lot of meme protocols will have this, especially if there's no utility. So you need to understand, finding this may seem trivial. Again, you probably already have found it if you went through the white paper, but it's important to know because, I mean, if they have no users actually using the platform and they are an AMM and they have higher staking percentages, I mean, that's a little bit dangerous. That's going into territory like, okay, well, they're making no money, they're giving lots of money out, what the fuck is happening? Okay, so these questions start to buzz. Now, do they have a roadmap? Ensure the roadmap is clearly stating dates, times for when the upgrades are happening, and it's better if they have a dedicated page with more detailed breakdowns. A lot of the Polkadot parachains, I think Akala is a prime example of that. Akala has a beautifully spread out roadmap. Now, in the same regard, does the roadmap align with previous timeframes and Medium articles? So going back, once we have found the roadmap, go into the Medium article or any sort of article that sort of has direct ties with the protocol or the team itself. So, Bob down the road isn't actually updating it himself and, putting out fraud information. We need to find stuff that's from the protocol saying, okay, on this particular date, we did the mainnet update, for example, and if they said it was supposed to happen a month prior on the roadmap, then it's like, okay, well, maybe if we're using this to invest in the project to make a quick return, for example, then maybe we need to keep in mind that we hold the token for an extra month or two, whatever that time frame may be, because as I said, they might not be coming out with that just yet. So it's very important to understand the roadmap. Again, also, if they haven't come out with updates as well, and they said we're going to be launching the mainnet, and there's no updates, and it's like 3 or 4 months later, that's also a bit of a red flag as well. Now, the L1 Flywheel, okay, this is obviously pretty important. This is something, again, that kind of ties in a little bit with defensibility. So up here, this is something you've probably heard me talk about a little bit, and I'm going to show you the chart. So this is it here. Now, I'm not going to claim accountability for any of this. This is all outsourced. This is all public knowledge. This is from A16Z. So this is out there and well known, but I'm just sort of bringing it to the mainstream in a way. So what is this? Well, this is pretty much the flywheel. It says layer 1, but this can also apply in multiple different ways to layer 2 and layer 3s. How the protocol creates value, okay? How it retains value, and the most important thing, how it retains value for the token, okay? So just to give you the quick rundown, the founders and the core team create the meme, what is the protocol? It's going to have 500,000 TPS, and it's going to do it this way and that way, and it's going to create the white paper, and this is how it's going to work. That's the meme, and that's the protocol. That's the design. Then the investors come along, and the investors provide their capital. They create token value because they've now put their real dollars into the protocol to now create value, okay? What is a consequence of token value? Well, miners and validators want to come in because they're being enticed. The protocol is saying, hey guys, we want to give you some tokens if you come in and validate our protocol or mine our tokens and keep it safe and keep it running, which then in turn creates functionality. When you create functionality, you need to create dApps, okay, especially for L1s. As I said, this does change slightly for L2s. And dApps come in and they obviously provide human capital and create useful applications, which then provides utility for the end users. The end users actually do supply some resources to the protocol itself with the community. And that's very important. The community is a fucking huge step in all this, which is commonly overlooked. Now, this flywheel, you might be thinking, Kyron, why the hell are we looking at this flywheel? Why is it important at all? Because without this, if we can observe this, and it's very easy to observe, if the protocol you're looking at does not have any of these, or there's weak points along any of these tracks, you're either too early and not worth the investment, or the protocol's dying. It's dead. It's not holding its intrinsic value. It doesn't have anything there. There's no defensibility. And you'll find with most 95, 97% of cryptocurrency projects, this is going to be a big issue. And you need to be stern with yourself and say, okay, if it's not working, it's not working. But as long as you can identify along this track where that point of failure actually is, because they may be working on it and you may want to find more research. Again, I'm going into too much depth here, guys, but this is the sort of thing you need to look at, okay? So do they have good socials? I'm not going to go into this. Obviously, social is very, very important. We can use Lunar Crush for this as well. What's more important than followers is engagement. Engagement is 100 times more important than followers. A project might have 1,000 followers, all 1,000 followers are dedicated fans. A project might have 20,000 followers and only 500 show true engagement, are true fans, okay? So we're going to show you why that is so important in the live streams, of course, and how we can sort of use that to understand where the project's heading, okay? What's the product market fit? Now, by this stage, you should have a pretty good idea of like, okay, this project is potentially really, really fucking good. So now we're kind of trying to understand like where it can go, all right? So what is the product market fit? It's pretty well universally understanding what that means. Where can it go? If it's an Oracle service like API 3, what's the big daddy? The big daddy is Chainlink, okay? But what features does API 3 have that is better than Chainlink, or what does it have that Chainlink can't adopt in the future, okay? And that's a big, really, really important part of it. Now, is a project ESG? Now, with the way the world's going, being environmentally friendly is important. Obviously, having a good governance structure is something that will be pretty obvious to many people, and obviously social, we've touched on the socials already. So is it environmentally friendly? A lot of people are going to give a lot. There's a big debate in the community about POS versus POW. POW being proof of work, not prisoner of war, and sort of like what is the best way. POW is great because you need to actually have you're fighting for that next block. You're fighting for hash power, things like that. POS, it's more like, here's my money, and I'm gonna monopolize this sort of ecosystem in a way. There is other sort of ways that you can get around that, like pure proof of stake. So it's not just point blank. And of course, with POW, people argue that it is a better ecosystem in that regard. But then again, the environmental aspect of it can also be detrimental in that regard. So lots to think about there. And again, we're going to get into the differences here. We're going to get into sort of like why proof of stake or some proof of stake algorithms, why they are potentially less viable than a very, very similar proof of stake mechanism. And it does depend on how the protocol has actually implemented that and what other algorithms they've used in conjunction that may actually make it okay. Or same thing with proof of work, okay? So is there passive income from staking and delegating? So as an added bonus, if we can stake or delegate to a validator or hold a token and receive passive income, then this should be an avenue we look into. Again, we don't want to be just holding the tokens. If we can stake it, or if we do hold it and we are getting rewards like Mina, for example, then we want to be, that's a bit more enticing. And that's where the protocol has done that, of course. But yeah, I mean, that's a great incentive to obviously keep or buy the token if you are a bit on the fence. Now, this can be followed up with some negatives. So this should be followed up with positives, negatives that come with doing as such. Example, if we delegate, we could lose funds if the validator is penalized / rewards a slash. We need to find out like what the potential penalties are. Of course, most validators in a lot of ecosystems are doing it for the good. And if they are, public with that, there's a chance that they won't happen. But we need to understand like our funds could be lost here if we do delegate. So we need to understand the risk to reward. And remember, this does offset the emissions % as well. So if, for example, they're saying we've got a 20% staking reward rate, that sounds fantastic. But if the token emissions are at 15%, really that's only 5%. Okay, so we need to understand that as well. Now, this is something I wanted to throw in here. Not a lot of people do as well. What is the competency of the team? Now, we do this by going into some of the group chats, channels, and we ask them, okay, we ask the team a question. It could be a question you've had researching the white paper, a genuine question, or it could just be a make-believe question you know the answer to, but you want to see what they say. It could be a difficult question. I do suggest synergizing some difficult questions, but again, just go into Telegram, Discord, email, or other alternatives, and pretty much just see if they're responsive, if they care about you, okay? And that's very important as well. The final piece of the puzzle is observing Crunchbase for detailed summary of the financial position. Again, Crunchbase is expensive. In the projects I go in, you're going to be getting the free route because I'm going to be using my Crunchbase to go through. So you guys can, if you're interested in the projects, you guys can get that information for free. Crunchbase pretty much tells you all the financials of a public company, of course, depending on how small. If they are very, very new or small, you're not going to have as much information, but of course, Crunchbase does have a lot of information. Now, again, in saying that, I'm coming out with my own website pretty soon that should have a lot of this. If it does take off, if it does get a lot of use, not just from users, but also from cryptocurrency projects, willing to put up their details, who their investors are, who their teams are, have educational videos and blogs, then of course this may be a very suitable position for a lot of people to use. It may be a good source, and obviously I'm going to be promoting that in that case. Now, that being said, guys, that covers the vetting stage. That covers the purple area, the meat and potatoes. The rest of it is what I've covered in my investment strategy series, which is all pretty much literally starting from zero and going to hero, okay? From starting from a new beginner to going to actually investing in projects after we go through this guide. So I do suggest, again, watch that video if you haven't seen it already. Now, with that being said, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Again, the first live stream should be coming out next weekend. As for what time, not too sure. Stay tuned for my Twitter, where I will announce what time it is, and we can all hopefully meet on there and ask questions and go through a couple projects together. Of course, that may be about an hour and a half, but at least we're sort of understanding things in a similar pattern, and you guys can ask questions as we go. It'll be nice, relaxed. We'll have a coffee, and we'll just make it a nice, easy process so we can all get on the same page. With that being said, thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.